Welcome back everybody, my name is Dustin. In the last video we ended up making wrapper classes for the EnTT registry and entity. We also made a few components. There will be more components necessary later on, however I decided that we're going to need to create the asset manager first and actually start the application class inside of the editor. The application class will allow us to move everything outside of the main.cpp file and to make it a little bit cleaner. In this video, we're actually going to create the asset manager. The asset manager is used to hold all the necessary assets that will be needed in the game engine. Whether it is textures, sound effects, musics, shaders. Today we're only going to focus on textures and shaders in the asset manager. Then we're going to add the asset manager to the registry context so you can see how to do that. So let's start that now. First thing we're going to want to do is create a new folder in the core project. So here in core, we're just going to create a new folder, add new folder, and it's just going to be called resources. Inside resource folder, we're going to create a new file, and it's just going to be the asset manager. Asset manager.h, and it's going to be in the namespace. And we're going to call this one Scion resources. Did I spell that right? Alright, we're going to have to include a few things. We're going to need a map. We're going to need memory. So we're going to have some shared pointers. We're going to need string. And we're going to need to have the shader and the texture, because that's what we're focusing on today. We'll add more assets later on when they become necessary, but this is good for now, a good way to start. The maps that we're going to have right now are going to be std map, and it's going to be an std string for our key, and we're going to have a shared pointer of the Scion rendering and texture. So this will be for our textures, and we'll just say m map textures, and we might as well just copy that and change this. Instead of a texture, it's going to be a shader and m map shaders. Oh, no, this is going to be, sorry. First, it's going to have to be this. Class Asset Manager. Should have did that already. This will be private. Sorry, guys. Getting ahead of myself. Put these inside. Okay. And for public, our constructors are going to actually just be default. Our constructor and destructors. So we'll just say default. Copy this line, add the tilde, good. For adding the texture, we're just going to say bool, add texture, and that's going to take in a string, const std string. Holy crap, there's string, and that's going to be the texture name. So that's the name for the key for our map. We're also going to take in a const std string. And this is the texture path. So what's the file path for the texture? And we're also going to have a bool pixel art. Is it pixel art? And we'll just default to true. Now, if you remember in our texture loader, it checks to see if it's pixel art, and it'll change how it sets some of our OpenGL attributes. And then this one is going to be a const Scion rendering. Texture, reference, get texture, and that will take in the name of the texture. Texture name. And for our shader, we're going to have bool add shader, and it's going to say take a const std string, and that's the shader name, const std string, and that it will be the vertex path, and then const std string and fragment path. And we're also going to have a getter for our shaders, and it's going to be Scion rendering, shader, reference, get shader, and it'll get it by name. All right, so let's make all of these. Let's go into our asset manager.cpp and we'll just quickly go namespace Scion resources. Put this inside. Get rid of all this. Oops. I want that. It's this I don't want. Okay. So to add a texture, we're actually going to want to use the texture loader. So let's grab that now, and that'll be in rendering and essentials, texture loader. And we're going to need our shader loader as well. And we might as well put the logger in, so we can log any issues we have. So the first thing we're going to want to do is check to see if the texture already exists. So we just go if the map of textures that needs a T in here. Now, can it find a texture name is not equal to not match shader textures dot end. Then we just want to say Scion error failed to add texture. Oops. With the name, I will say already exists, and that's just texture name. Just return false. Then we go auto texture is equal to std move Scion rendering texture loader create. So now this is where we want to check to see if it's pixel art or not, and then I'll change how what our texture type is. So if it is pixel art, so we'll put that in here. If it's pixel art, then we want to go Scion rendering texture type pixel, or else it'll be blended. And then we just want to send in the texture path. Oh, cool. Then here we just want to check to see if the texture is not null pointer, because this returns a shared pointer. So if the texture is null pointer, we want to go Scion error failed to load texture at path that's the texture name and texture path, and we just return false as well. False. So if the texture is not null pointer, when we get here, we just want to insert it into the map. So map textures dot in place texture name, and then we'll do std move texture. And if we make it to here, return true. All right. So now to get a texture, we just want to get an iterator text iter is equal to m map textures dot find texture name, and then we'll do a check here. So if text iter is equal to the end this time, that means it didn't find it. So we want to go Scion error failed to get texture does not exist. And then we just want to return, because it's const, we can return just an object itself. So Scion rendering texture. Oh, capital R, that's funny. And then if it's here, it's successful. We just want to dereference our texture iterator, text iterator, and get the second, because the second is the shared pointer of the texture, and we're dereferencing it here. All right, that's the get texture and the add texture. Now let's do the add shader. So we basically want to do the same thing. We want to check to see if we already have the shader. So check to see if the shader already exists, and then we go if map shader dot find shader name is not equal to map shader dot end. We just say Scion error failed to add shader already exists. And then we'll just say the shader name here and return false. So now we want to create and load the shader. And that's just auto shader is equal to std move Scion rendering shader loader create, and that just takes in the vert path and the fragment path. And then now we want to check to see if it's null pointer, because this also returns a shared pointer. So if not shader, we want to say Scion error failed to load shader at vert path and frag path and return false. All right, and if it gets to here, we just want to insert it to the map shader in place, shader name, and std move shader, and return true. All right, and the get shader is basically the same as the get texture, so let's just copy this and change the stuff accordingly. So here, map shader, copy that, change this to shader name. Change this to shader iterator. Fail to get shader at shader name. And this one, we just want to send back a shader. So it looks like we don't have a default shader, so we're going to fix that. Shader iterator. Okay, so now we have to go to the shader constructor. Let's go to this. Looks like here we don't have a default shader here, so we'll add that now. And we'll just put that here. And this shader will just be the other shader, and we'll just say 0, empty, empty. Cool, that should work now. Go back here. Still not happy. Yes. So we need to go, let's take this. And just return the empty shader. And then here we're turning the shader iterator. Do we have that all? Map shader, shader, good. So that should work. So now let's go to our main.cpp and add in our asset manager. So here, include core resources asset manager. And we can create a new asset manager. We'll do that. Where do we create our registry? We create a registry here. So we can do our asset manager here. So we go auto asset manager is equal to std make shared Scion resources asset manager. Then we'll just check real quick. If not, asset manager fail to create the asset manager. Return -1. And if so, we actually want to take this texture and create it with the asset manager instead. So we can go asset manager, add texture, and then we just give it the texture name, and we're going to just call this, because this is a castle.png, we'll just call it castle. And then we'll go give it the texture path. So let's copy the path here. And it defaults as pixel, so we'll just put it to true anyway. Cool, so it adds texture, so we can go to this here, if not Scion error, fail to create and add the texture. Turn -1. And let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of all this. Actually, let's keep that. So we'll just get rid of this here. And we still want that texture. So we'll go asset manager, get texture, and we want castle. Now this returns a reference, so it's not a pointer anymore, so we have to change all these. And I think we have another error, yep, right here, same idea. And down here, texture ID. Okay, so let's run that and see if that works. No. Ah, yes. Looks like I'm not in. I forgot I had this set up where I have to run in admin in order to build. So we'll try again. I have a feeling that this needs glad as well. So let's add it. Go here, add glad to our core. Glad include solution dir. And we might as well add soil. So those were added there into our VCC include directories. And we're also going to add them as references. So here, go to reference, and that's glad and soil. Okay. And I think that should build now. Awesome. So we still have our eye that's coming from our castle texture. And that is actually being loaded from our asset manager. So if we go back to main here, if you see, we're grabbing our texture from the asset manager. We can do the same thing with the shader. I'll leave that up to you as an exercise. And in the next video, we're actually going to take all this out of here, out of main. Main's going to be very small afterwards. And we're just going to create the application. The application is going to have your process events, your update function, basically your game loop. So your main application loop is going to be in the application class. And we're going to go over that in the next video. Should be a nice quick video for you guys. So if you want, go over, create the asset manager now, and try to add the shader to the asset manager and enable it, grab the shader from the asset manager and enable it down here. All right, take it easy, like and subscribe if you haven't already. And if there's any comments or suggestions for the next videos, please leave them below and I'll get back to it as soon as I can. All right, take it easy.